So we shall start. Thank you everybody for coming. Welcome. We have a very long agenda tonight because it is the annual meeting of the Parish Council where we have to do certain standard things. Anyway, we will go through the boilerplate as fast as we can, and we've got various other things we also have to decide. So the first thing is, do we have any declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary other than pecuniary interest from
They're on
anybody?
the side. I have
No, okay. Thank you. So we don't have any applications. Apologies and reasons for absence.
Councillor Parkin is unwell.
Right, Councillor Parkin's unwell, and
No.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor
So I
Allen.
think of his name. You remember his name?
I don't know why I can remember his name, same as mine. We don't know, okay. First thing we'd have to do then is it's the annual requirement to elect a chairman, for the chairman, the successful chairman to sign. Here he is.
Time for the vote.
Welcome. We're only just beginning. Do you have any interests, pecuniary or other than? No. Okay, and we didn't quite get as far, or we'll unenter your apology that we didn't get.
I didn't put it down. I knew it would be.
Yeah.
Good.
You knew I'd be coming.
Yes.
We're just about then to elect a chairman and to sign the declaration of office for whoever the successful candidate is. Now, just to make, for people's understanding, because this is odd, but it is statutory rules, we don't have any choice. Because I'm the chairman for last year, I must preside until a successor is elected. I have a vote. I may vote for myself if I wish. And if it's an equality of votes, which it could be because there's 6 of us, then I have a casting vote and I must cast it. And I can cast it for myself or not as I wish. And they are all statutory rules. It's quite different to what we used to do years ago before we knew, when the chairman used to walk out and we'd all have a huddle, but that is actually in the official book. So, do I have any nominations for a chairman?
Well, I'd like to nominate you, Mr. Chairman.
Who's going to nominate me?
I'm going to nominate you.
Does someone nominate anybody else?
No.
Is anyone going to second that? So we've got Councillors Venning and Lloyd Smith. Who wants to vote on that? That's the only nomination we've got. Who wants to vote on that nomination?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if I vote for myself, it's unanimous. Right. Thank you. I have to now sign a piece of
It
paper
could be a majority.
to say that I'm officially chairman again. Thank you very much for that.
That's the way of
We
the
won't say that it's a reposing of confidence, it's just that no one else wants to do it.
Oh, not true.
It's the full
Right.
Alan was looking
Aye.
forward to it.
Chairman Smith has been elected to the office of chairman. Parish Council. Witness it. Okay, thank you very much. Now the next one is to elect a vice chairman. Now, irrespective of whoever might want to nominate any people, because I got the apology from George earlier today, and the clerk did, we did ask him if he was willing to serve as vice chairman again, should he be elected, and he said he was. So that's not to say that he should be elected, merely that you don't have to avoid electing him because he's not here.
Good.
Would someone like to nominate anybody for vice chairman? You would.
Yeah,
Who would you
Councillor
like to
Parkin.
nominate? Councillor Parkin. Would someone like to second
I
Councillor
will
Parkin?
second that.
Leslie will. Right. Are there any other nominations?
Certainly not.
No. Who would like to vote on the nomination of Councillor Parkin for Vice Chairman? Unanimous. Okay. He will have to sign his declaration.
No, it's only the
Oh,
chairman.
it's only the chairman, right. That makes it easy then. Good. Thank you for all of that. So we now move on to the public session. So who would like to speak in the public session? We do, yes, we do. Do we have any planning? We do, Hope Farmhouse, yes. So Hope Farmhouse is on the agenda as a planning application. Has anyone come to speak on behalf of or as a neighbour or whatever about Hope Farmhouse's application? No? Okay.
I am remiss. The applicant is with me. It arrived late last night, only yesterday, and I'm supposed to bring it to the meeting.
Oh, right, okay. Understood.
Can't really look at it to discuss it.
Well, other people have been invited.
And it's online.
I think.
It's online.
I've seen it. Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, there was another planning application doing the rounds, which was a change of access on Palster Court Road,
Yes.
what have you, which, for trying to life of me, I couldn't quite work out which gate it was and where it was going to from the site map.
Is that with you, Leslie, still?
No,
No.
that's here.
No, it's
Oh,
here.
right.
No, it's
Yes.
only the one that
Yes,
I think we
but
did
is
all
that-
the way around.
is that
It's
one-
one that's, it's not because I put it through to be considered beforehand,
Right.
So-
Okay.
not,
So it's not on the
And we've
agenda?
ticked the sheet, haven't we?
no, it comes down later on the agenda, but not
Okay.
to be discussed because you've already given me
Okay.
your thoughts on that.
Right.
Thank you.
Decision is
Okay.
planning.
We're done, yes, it's done.
project.
Yeah.
Right, so no one in the public seats wants to mention or talk about Hope Farm.
Well, I would just like to support it, that's all. I would
Okay,
like to support the application.
the proposal. Okay, thank you for that. No one else. So who in the public would like to say something within the public session? If indeed anything, you're not obliged to, of course, but if anyone would like to. Mary?
Yeah, I wrote in the letter, I'm really worried about the way we deal with planning matters.
Sure, yeah.
I know that someone's going to say that you're not performing a function. Sorry, a bit croaky, I've got a fever. You're not performing a function because you don't have to take planning decisions. I think we can forget about this word function altogether. The point about the Crow Act is we have greater guidance for it in the 2005 DEFRA guidance, which states quite clearly, it talks about decision making. It's important to note that the duties apply to any decisions or activities an authority may take effect in land in AONBs. DEFRA's expectations of relevant authorities expect to be able to demonstrate that they've fulfilled these duties, i.e. the duty of regard. That's further explained in Natural England's very good booklet, England's Statutory Landscape Designations, this one. Various AONB units have taken up this line, guidance and advice for relevant authorities and those in public office on your duties in the AONB under Cranbourne, Chase and Wiltshire Downs. Very good little booklet. I think we ought to have one in this AONB unit. It's quite clear that we are under a duty we are under a duty of regard to the purposes of the AONB, and it's getting missed out. I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, just the sort of piffling little planning applications, but the significant setting applications and the major applications, we have got to have regard to the duty. We're missing out on that. We can't go on like this.
Okay, I take your point as you've stated it, Mary. I have, as you know, checked into it before.
Yes.
And when we get to the item on the agenda, I'll come back to it as well.
One further request,
Go on.
would there be any chance of doing it first? I'm on maternity nurse duties at the moment. I'm going to have to rush off to hold the baby. So, can we possibly put it first? Because it's quite a long way down the
It is, yes.
schedule.
All right, we'll pull it up,
I
Mary,
think it's
to
very important.
we'll pull it up to after the minutes and the matters arising.
Thank you
It
very
won't
much.
take it won't take very long at that point. It may follow on after that. I understand the point you're saying about the functions vis-à-vis decisions, and the Crow Act obviously is quite clear its functions, as you know, and we've talked about that in previous meetings. Whether the DEFRA guidance is authoritative when it uses the term decisions instead of functions, and whether we're taking a decision, we'll have to think about. But we'll get to that
I think
when
the DEFRA guidance, the DEFRA guidance makes it apparent that decision making is a subset of functions.
But are we taking a decision even? Well, who knows? We'll come to that when we get to it. We'll look at that fairly early in the agenda then.
Thank you very much.
I have had advice before and I've looked up some more, and the trouble is that
I'm in correspondence with Natural England that they have a 10-day reply. So I'm
Okay.
afraid the reply, I'm waiting on a reply.
okay, is anybody else, thank you for that, Mary, does anyone else want to say things in public session? Miriam?
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that. I mean, you say you've had advice.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever seen that advice. Could you tell us now in the public
I
sector?
told you at the time, what
Where
it
that
was.
advice
It
has
was
come from.
oral advice. I talked to the advisor at Calc, and he confirmed that when we
So that
give a
is-
response on a planning application, it is not the exercise of a function, which is, that's the question I asked, and he
Okay,
confirmed that
that's
that was
fair
the
enough.
position.
Just stop, because that's not quite clear to me, but I mean, I can see why you're going to Calc. I mean, that is why you would go for
Yeah.
advice on these matters. So this is the legal advisor at Calc who's giving you this advice? That it's not a function?
It's the advisor at Calc who said it's not a function.
So that's their legal advisor, is that?
I wouldn't say
right?
he's the legal advisor, I don't know that, he
Well,
is the
who is
advisor.
can I know the person who gave that advice? The name of the person who gave that advice, because I find it strange that they should give you that advice.
Well, their job is to
So,
advise,
I
I'm
mean,
afraid,
if they're giving
Miriam.
that advice to all parish councils in the OMB, that's worrying to me.
Okay, well,
So,
I note that you're worried, Miriam. When we get to it on the agenda, I've looked up some other stuff online. I realise that there's an argument that can run and run, and you'll have your own views, but there are alternative sources that take the same view as the advice that I've had.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Okay.
there's always alternative views. What I'm trying to get to is where that advice is coming from, so I can understand it.
Well, the advice
not
was,
saying that,
it's not, the advice was, it's not a function,
yeah,
and that...
but I'm trying to get to where the person who actually
Choice
gave
of
the
right,
advice. I mean,
the
do you
advisor...
have this advice in writing?
No, I've already told you it was all, Miriam. We're just going round in a circle
Well,
here.
not really.
I asked the
We were
question,
trying to get to-
orally, and I had face to face, and I had an oral response. It
Can
is
we
not a
ask for it in
function.
writing now?
I mean,
Well,
it's
I-
worrying.
From the office.
Subject to when we get to it on the agenda, which we will now take early on. When we've got to it on the agenda, then the council can decide what it
Yeah,
wants
but
to
the
do.
whole point is when we
Hold
get
on,
to the
the
agenda.
council, hold on, the
Hold on,
council
this is
can
supposed to be the public session.
It is,
So when we get
it
to
is,
the
The
agenda-
chairman's trying to answer.
It
Is
is,
it a
I'm-
public
The
session?
chairman's trying to answer you.
Chair of the meeting,
You
Miriam.
keep interrupting. Why don't you shut up for a while?
Please let me chair the meeting. When we get to it in the council session, then the council will decide what it wants to do in response to the question that Mary has put, very politely, and the responses that I have had before and will be presenting tonight. We'll decide what we want to do and we'll go on from there. Remember, it is a council meeting, but we do allow a public session in it.
Yeah, okay.
And
But
I
there's
do chair
absolutely
the
no
whole.
argument with that.
I do
When
chair
you
the
get to your session,
Mhm.
then you should have complete information on which to make your decisions.
Mhm.
So, in the public session, you ought to be listening to what members of the public want to say.
And I think I have done.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't, because you've interrupted me
Got a
at
point.
every possible opportunity. I'm supposed to have 4 minutes to speak, but I've been interrupted during that time
Okay.
when I'm actually trying to speak.
Yeah. Okay, I have a councillor who wants to make a point.
Again, I have said this in the past, and I think this argument between the floor and the chair is intolerable, and I think it shouldn't be allowed, and I think we should rapidly move on to next business.
Yeah,
Okay. Does anyone else in the public session want to raise any other points?
Well, I'd like to make the comment that these people who take great joy in disrupting whatever parish council meeting they can should really ought to understand the basics of life. Life is mostly shades of grey. It's not black and white. Always has been, always will be. And it's not fair to the other people, sincere people here, that this should, intolerable nitpicking should go on.
I don't think it's nitpicking. We are in a
We
are in a nationally designated area, an
Okay.
area of outstanding natural beauty.
Okay, that much is agreed. Thank you very much.
Can I
So,
say something?
yes, please.
The designation of an area of outstanding natural beauty covers virtually the south of England.
Well,
The points
not
about...
the
No,
South
listen, let me finish.
Well, that's
No,
not
no.
it's not the whole South of England.
Okay, are you going to let me finish or not? Are you going to let me finish or not?
Well, you can finish, but it doesn't cover the
Are
whole
you
of the
going to
South
let
of
me
England.
finish or not?
That's not true.
The point is, I'm assuming that your discussions on this point relate to planning requests for properties in the Wittersham area. Is that correct?
No, not just planning requests. No, I mean,
So-
I think planning is important, but it's also other things. I think when we had the situation with the village green and the removal of hedges, I mean, hedgerows are a really important part.
But we
of
didn't
the-
remove it, did we?
Well, of course, but then we had the discussion. The whole point is that we had a
But the
discussion.
main thing you're on about, presumably, is planning for houses in Wittersham. There can't be any other reason that you're going on
No,
about this.
that's absolutely wrong. There's a loss of orchard. We're going to, I mean, the cemetery, for example, the extension of the cemetery. You
Okay.
might be looking at the,
All right, let me just try and settle this one down. Let me just try and settle this one down. Mary's concern was very, and then we'll move on, was very explicitly about the way we deal with planning applications, and the question about whether it was an exercise of a function was about planning applications.
Yeah.
When it comes to other things that we have done or do, the good example is the hedge around the Green and Coronation Field, where we were actually taking a decision to do something, not merely to give our response to an opportunity to be consulted. And on that occasion, the clerk and I visited, and I've reported this here before, we visited the AONB unit in Flimwell, we took photographs, we discussed the whole project with them, and they said it was nothing to do with them, and they were really quite surprised we bothered to ask them. But now, I'm not saying that that was right or that was wrong. They were very polite. I'm not saying that we were thrown out. But the fact is that where we were not talking about a planning application, we proceeded with great care, and I would assume that you would be happy about that. Do not mix the two up. So when it comes to things like that, then we were
The gentleman asked
careful.
me a question and I answered the question.
Okay.
Right, next business.
I think
Yeah.
now
Yes, here.
I've got a resolution for us to move on, and if councillors are happy with that, that is what
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, no, I'm sorry, Mary, I'm afraid it's got a bit out of hand.
Yeah.
So let us move on
Yeah,
to the council meeting proper. Thank you very much for the contributions. We're going to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of April, which you've all had.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I did notice one that's still missing, minute number here, which you will put in after. 3765, we've got a reference of a minute number missing, that's all.
That's right.
I didn't notice anything else. Did anybody else
Nope.
notice
No.
anything else? No? So we can, who's going to propose that we're happy with
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
Colin and Sue? I want to find the reference so I can finish it. Initial there, initial here, initial here, initial outside. Thank you. Matters arising. An update on ABC's handling of the Three Buds Cottages planning application. We talked about this last time because if you remember, the Ashford had granted the Three Buds laying application that we weren't very happy with, without discussing with the clerk first, which we felt was necessary. We talked about a letter which I drafted to go to them, questioning that decision at Ashford, but we decided that we'd get Borough Councillor to go and ask the question first. He went in and came back, and he did tell me that he'd had a discussion with some people in the planning team, I'm not sure who, and it seemed that they acknowledged that that is a rule of some sort, of some level, that they should come back if they're going to grant when the parish council was against it. They acknowledged that they don't always seem to follow it, but what wasn't clear to me was actually whether they regard that as a firm rule or a sort of best practice rule. And I'm just not sure now, and I ask for your views, whether we should write to Ashford in a different form of words, just saying we've had this issue, not for the first time, and the Borough Council has had some words with the planners, but is this actually something you should be following and we can rely on it, or is it something where it's just kind of hit and miss? I don't know what you think we should do. I don't particularly want to irritate the new head of planning on that grounds, but on the other hand, it would be useful if we knew what the situation was, and after the discussion that he had and then with me, it seems still to be a bit vague.
I think we should seek clarification from ABC.
Right. People happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. So, make a note.
There is a new head of planning now, is there?
Yes.
Tim Naylor, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's his name?
Tim Naylor.
Yeah.
And he came from one of the London boroughs.
There's a whole thing because Tice Pax has gone.
He's
as well.
gone, yes.
So there's
Yeah.
been a whole changeover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think clarity to ourselves and any other parish council that may be faced with the same dilemma.
Yes.
I think we should have some
Yeah.
constructive dialogue.
Yes. I think it's not unreasonable at all.
Yeah.
That's good, thank you. We can do that. The next one is the trial cleaning of the war memorial and a quote from Burslams. Now, you've had the opportunity of going to see where George went out with his marigolds and his fairy liquid and a paintbrush, he said. And he said that the dirt does come off with hot water and detergent, but he only did a tiny patch. He said it would take a very long time to do it all.
Yes.
We're still trying to avoid doing anything that's too harsh for the memorial, and we also remember your comment, Alan, that we don't actually want to make it look too pristine. It's supposed to be a monument, in fact a 100-year-old monument nearly. But on the other hand, we don't want it to be looking as bedraggled as it does at the minute. And, yeah. And part of that
Burslams are an expert in cleaning memorials, and because that concern about erosion is very, very apposite.
And there's
There's
also a
some
question that
reassurance
the dingy bit really is only the plinth.
And that's
The
made
pillar and the pineapple, or
it's
whatever it is,
stone,
orb,
isn't it?
they're marked, they're not clean, but then if we don't wish it to be clean, they're clean enough, as it were.
And
will
when
be.
when it was done last time, 6 years ago, whenever it was, quite a time ago, first time that it had been done properly, the council complained that the top bit wasn't as nice as all the rest, but we were told that that's because it's not the same stone. So it's not going to ever look the same as the rest.
Different, yeah.
Do we know whether ragstone does, with ageing, stain anyway? Does it discolour?
Well, we've had it white before. I mean, white as in white.
But the upper
the
part
other
being the Portland stone.
Well, it's got a little bit of growth on it and things like that. You know, it's a little bit green tinted in places, I think, at the top, but that's a different issue. Our possibility, I think, is to get a clean of the plinth without being too aggressive and without expecting it to be spotless. In other words, to get the large mass of black off it and leave it at that, and then maybe do it a bit more often to try and avoid it getting as ingrained. Can we suggest then that the clerk has whatever?
Would you like to hear this quote?
Didn't you send it to us?
You've all had it,
Mm.
so you're all happy.
Yeah.
Because these
Yeah.
were the ones that if their wording was different, if you remember the other one
That's right.
was talking about high pressure.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
that's what we were concerned about.
Yeah, but
Whereas
that-
this one,
Low pressure.
Is this not talking about the pressure machine? Because I think last time we did it, we didn't have the pressure washing, did we? Because that's what we were concerned about. I'm sure the people that did it last time didn't pressure wash it.
What I was going to suggest, if people are happy, is to authorise the clerk to have discussions with one or more of those who quoted and try and settle on a non-aggressive approach at a sensible price without going above the plinth, which takes away the need for the scaffolding and all the palaver. It will come down, the quote will come down quite a bit, and then get on with it.
And make the point that we don't really want too much of a contrast
Indeed.
between the two cars. Yeah, that sounds good.
Is that something you can do? Yeah. Okay. I think that's the best way, because otherwise we'll just be bouncing back and forth between meetings, and it needs a discussion at a conclusion. Good. The housing needs survey.
Yep, I've spoken to actually the communities in rural Kent. I spoke to Tessa O'Sullivan, who's the officer who actually conducted the last survey, which is I think over 5.5 years. They're pretty busy at the moment. I said it wasn't a matter of immediate urgency, and we've got sort of a provisional agreement. I managed to sort of, I think, jump a few places, but we're thinking about late September, October, and her point was that it's best when you do this work to do it outside of the school holidays, because people are away and what have you.
Yep.
Ashford, in their unbelievable stinginess, fund one free survey a year in the borough, and Wye have already managed to get that. Which so we sort of mutually, I don't know who suggested it, but I think it's an opportunity for our borough councillor to dig into his members fund, because it's going to cost around probably about 1,000–1,200 to do a proper survey on that. So I will get confirmation of that. Haven't been obviously instructed to go ahead. I did make the point that we'd be looking for data that was going to be useful, both not just in current requirements, but also people trying to put their finger on future requirements, particularly in trying to at least assess the younger generation's needs if they're ever going to be homeowners in our village. So I'll come back with a properly documented proposal on that to spend that. But I suspect it's going to happen hopefully before Christmas, but we won't be able to use anything this calendar year.
And did it just tell me again the amount of money you thought it might be?
It's based on the number of houses and properties, and according to the 2011 census, there are 531, and as we know, not a huge increase in the last 7 years in terms of builds. That gives a cost of around about 1,200. But I think members' money might be requested to help out.
Yes, if you remember, although things in some ways have moved on, Simon Cole last year was suggesting that he thought that a survey would be useful.
Yeah.
And we did ask him, you and I, about whether they would put their hand in the pocket, and he said he couldn't confirm that, but if he's thinking it would be useful. However, of course, we're just in the middle of the plan at the moment, and maybe everything changes. Right, okay, so that's the housing needs survey. Then we said that we would go back to the item on the agenda, although Mary has gone off on her duties, I think, which is her letter, number
25A.
25A. Here we are, email from Mary Walton with regard to planning discussion decision making. Okay. Right, well, we've rehearsed some of this in the public session already, namely that it has been raised before by Mary. In particular, Miriam might have joined in on that in the past, I'm not sure. Mary certainly has raised it. The Crow Act, which this comes from, which is Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000, section something or other, does say that bodies which include parish councils must take account of, among other things, AONBs when exercising their functions. And so it's always turned on whether it's a function or not. Now, the advice I got from Calc was no. Mary is saying there's a DEFRA note that says when you take decisions, which in a way just moves it sideways to whether we're taking a decision when we give our views on a planning application. Now, what I did find when Mary sent in her email was a couple of things on the website. I'm not doing now is fine because I'm out of order. Here we are. Here's Mary's email that we had before. And I did a quick check online and I found, I mean this is not exhaustive, but I found 2 second tier councils, that's to say planning authorities, who seem to comment on this by omission. The first one is Chichester District Council, equivalent to Ashford. They're not a borough, but that doesn't make any difference. That's only about whether they have a mayor or not. Chichester District Council gave a slide presentation to their local councils on various things, and part of it, on planning, and part of it was this slide that says role of parishes. Role of parishes as statutory consultees. Represent local views, provide local knowledge, raise areas of concern, inform debate and add value to the process. Neighbourhood planning, link between community and the council involved in local decisions on spending, of course we don't have one. Comments should ideally be relevant and appropriate, clear recommendations. No sense in that whatever of taking on a technical decision-making role and considering AONB management plans or national park or anything else. Just local views, which is what we've always felt that we were here to do. And the other one, and this is a more formal one, this is closer to home, it's Rother. And the way they're looking at it is, this is a part of a 30-page document, I think, from recollection. They're looking at the purpose of notification. That is the reason why they notify the local council, like us, so that they can give a view if they want to. Okay? And this is more formal, and it's actually, it tells us where we get more out of Ashford than we might, which is quite interesting. It says, there are a number of mutual advantages. This is their whole procedure, a bit of the whole procedure. There are a number of mutual advantages to the notification process. That's notifying someone like Iden that there is a planning application that they can put their 2p in on. Number of mutual advantages. It gives the parish council the opportunity to be aware of what development may be undertaken in their area. The development may be of particular significance locally, and the views of the parish council are a helpful indication of local reactions. The parish council, with its local knowledge, can alert the local planning authority to any anomalies in the application which would not be readily apparent on a site visit, e.g., local people may have important evidence of how a particular site is used, hours of working, etc. It enables the parish council to let local people know about development proposals. It enables the parish council to notify the local planning authority of suspected unauthorised development using the council's procedures. Nothing there about, and by the way, you've got to make all these technical decisions. It is, we let you know in case you want to let us know any local stuff. Now, that's not exhaustive, that's 2 councils who neither of them have given any consideration to the idea that their local councils will be doing what the district council is legally obliged to do, because they are exercising a function. They have to take account of the AONB, the national parks and whatever, under PRO Act. So that's what I came up with. Paul.
Thank you very much for that research, Mr. Chairman. That's very helpful indeed. I think there seems to me an ongoing element of confusion in this, in that Mary's email starts off by saying, how can our councillors possibly clearly show they've considered the purposes of AONBs in their discussion and decision making? Now, I might have got this wrong, but there seems to be an inference that we don't really consider it, and we don't care about it, we don't understand it, we don't know, and we don't really think about it. And I know for one, and I know my fellow councillors, that's not the case. You know, we're not going forward, I think that the public generally would accept that we spend a lot of time, each an individual, looking at the applications, trying to consider it, trying to weigh up the pros and cons in a very, very difficult area. But I thought it was very illuminating at the recent local elections when, I don't know if you saw it, the leader of Tandridge District Council, who was re-elected, and they had a bit of a change in the way the vote was proportioned, but basically said they are caught in this incredibly difficult position of balancing on the one hand the requirements, demands and the objectives and aims of the A and B, and the need to build houses, affordable houses. And it's exactly the same as we face in our area, and it's exactly the same at a macro level at central government. And it's that whole issue that's not going to go away. There's no magic solution, but I think it's really important to underline that we as a parish council do not disregard the AONB. I think what you've just done there is actually explain very carefully some rational understanding of it, and your visit to Flimwell further reinforces that this particular parish council takes a lot of care and attention and puts effort into it. So thank you for that.
Okay.
I quite agree with that.
Okay. Any other comments? I mean, the question is what we do next, if anything. We might just sit on the point we've got. We might try and find out more, but so far it looks as though, I mean, to be honest, Mary quotes a DEFRA note of 2005, and she quotes it with more sympathy than I automatically deploy. I have seen government, not in this particular case, I don't know which one she's referring to, but I've seen notes from government ministries and agencies in the past, guidance notes, which usually say at the beginning, by the way, this note is for guidance and is not a definite statement of the law, and you can't rely on it. They usually put that in the front colour. And I've seen them where I knew more about it, where they've definitely been wrong. And in any case, we come back to the word decision. We certainly decide with a small d how to send back our comments, but we are not deciding on the application in any way or whatever. We have no power to. Witness 3 Buds Lane. We didn't like it. Straight through. Colin.
Would it be useful, because I think this is going to keep repeating itself if we're not careful, that Parish Council has been challenged that who in CALP gave this information? Would it be possible to send the correspondence that we have received and ask for a definitive response, which would clear the situation in respect of us and everything else?
Sure. Okay.
For a time.
Good thinking.
But you know, at this point in time, you know,
Okay.
I think there is some mileage in trying to.
I think the legislation and everything is so open to interpretation,
Yes.
and it depends on the prevailing circumstances.
Precise that, I would agree with you. But if CALP were taking a note on behalf of Kent and are giving the same message to each of the parishes within the county, then my suggestion, Chair, is we go through that process and try to put it to bed as much as we can do at this point.
I agree.
Okay, Colin. Is everyone happy with that?
Good proposal.
Yep.
Yes. At least
Okay, we'll seek something in writing. I will draw some words together that put it back, hang it onto the oral advice before, and ask if that can be reconfirmed.
Yes.
In view of, as you say, sending the original email in.
I think it's important that, because we're going to get to the finish of one what DEFRA or
The
anybody else
benefit of
is.
that is, and it's a good point, the benefit of that is that CALP can actually go to NALC,
Yes.
who have got a dozen lawyers.
I think it is worth taking the time to actually.
Okay, fair enough. Good point. Right, let's move on then, thank you. So we've slipped that one in. So now we're on to electing members of working parties. Now, we don't need, I hope, to make a lot out of this if people are broadly happy to go with what we had before. But if we're not, then shout. I mean, if someone wants to pull back from what they're doing, let me just tell you what we've got at the moment. The first one is village caretaker. That is me, George as vice chairman, and of course the clerk. And we do working parties at times. So are we happy with that?
Yes.
Yes.
That's all agreed, okay. Finance, that is me and George again, chairman and vice chairman and the clerk. That's not something we do very often, but occasionally we need to do it to bring recommendations to you about budget and things.
Seems to be working very well.
Planning, we all automatically in it. In fact, planning doesn't kind of exist because we do it in this place. We don't have a planning committee. So that's all of us. Open spaces is an open question because it used to be David Green. Now we've got at the moment 2 councillors without anything against their name. That's Alan and Leslie, subject to the others.
Have a fight.
Shall we do the others and then we'll know where we stand? So highways in the past, Paul has always done
happy to carry on doing that.
And everyone happy with Paul doing it?
Yeah.
Pothole King.
You said it so well.
As opposed to what Yvonne did in the draft minute before I urged her to correct it. She felt that Wittersham had a pothole.
Oh!
We didn't know which address it was in.
I think it moves on every now and then.
I don't think we've got a pothole with somebody with their some aqua gear and bathing in it.
I
Do you
saw
see
that,
that?
yes, yes.
No, we haven't got that yet. So
Yes. No, I was thinking of a different pothole.
There's an amazing patch that appeared. Was it today?
Yes,
On
just
the
got
shop.
in. Just gone in, yep.
It's still level.
Yep. Public rights of way is me, unless anyone else wants to take it off me. I'd be pleased. No? We all agreed I do. I don't actually do public rights of way, Yvonne does, but I'm the person responsible on the council. Cemetery and churchyard, you have done traditionally, Sue. Is that all right?
Yes.
We're happy with that. And then I don't think we have any others. That just leaves us with open spaces.
Do you want to do it, Alan?
I'm happy to do it if that's.
Should we do it together?
Could we do it jointly?
Okay, we'll put down ALS.
There's a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of open space.
Yeah, ALS and LB.
Okay.
Right.
That's fine, isn't it?
Okay. Good.
Use the load.
Right, so
We
we're
are opposite ends of the
clear on all
village.
of
Exactly, very
them
practical.
and we're happy with all of them.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Good. We've got to elect 2
Can I just, sorry, very
Please,
quickly, I
of
know you
course.
want to move on. What does it entail?
You have to,
Now that you've
Having
agreed.
said- I know.
well, you have to walk around them all every day.
Thought it might.
Twice.
No, only
Twice.
only half of it.
Right.
I will take mine. Okay, thank you.
Once a year,
Move on.
you have to beat the boundary once a year.
Beat somebody. We've got to elect 2 representatives to attend CALC meetings. Now, since John went, I did that on my own. But then George was elected last year and he has come to one since, and he came to the AGM.
Yeah.
And he said he will go to the one next week when I'm away. So unless anyone, subject to him not being voted back in, he did say he was willing to do that again.
Good.
So we'll have that. 1 representative to the police parish forum or similar, if it ever exists.
Yes, I'll do
Is
that.
you.
Well, it seems to be sort of bubbling up.
It's
The latest
bubbling again.
publication they
Yes.
had,
Yeah.
my heart sank when I saw it all starts off with hair coursing is down, the season's it and everything. And then there's a spate of illegal fishing going on. But beyond that, they built up this unit, which is now headed by an inspector, with I think 2 or 3 sergeants, and there's about a dozen of them. And they're actually now, I was thinking of Alan in the sense that they've recovered trailers and they're doing great stuff in that area. So I think it's sort of like most things, it goes up and down. But I'm happy to carry on doing that.
Is everyone happy with Paul doing that?
Yes.
He's built up
He's done a good job.
the relationships a bit with PCCs. And the Village Hall Management Committee, George has said he's happy to continue doing that, and he is chairman of the
Good boy.
Village Hall Management Committee, so we're all happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
1 representative to the Tenterden Social Hub, new name for the day centre. Are you willing to carry on doing that, Sue, if they ever invite you?
Yes, if they ever invite me, yeah.
Well, I did ask the lady to put you on the list.
Do we still give them a grant?
Don't think so.
No,
We have done, haven't we?
in the past I think, but not recently.
Okay, the next one is the planning application previously circulated. My apologies for being slow to pass it on. Got it and got lost it in the
Our
pile.
apologies for leaving it at home.
Has everyone seen either the document going round or they've had the opportunity to look at it on the
Yep.
portal?
Yes.
Okay, with George not here tonight in pole position, who would like to start us off on that?
I don't have a problem with it.
You don't
No,
have a problem?
I don't either.
No.
No, I don't.
No.
And there doesn't appear to be anything from neighbours, does there?
I
at
didn't.
all?
It's quite
tucked
quite
away
a
quite a bit.
substantial extension, but it is out in the
Yeah.
sticks, relatively speaking. And obviously, we know that the neighbour hasn't come. He or she might put something in on the portal, but that would be considered. But we haven't had any anxieties expressed here.
I don't think anything has been done to that house in the way of sort of modernisation for a rather long time. So
No.
it's probably
Has it recently been sold? Or am I
Yes.
thinking
I think
of
that's
something?
what's
in,
triggered it.
in the last couple of years.
Yes.
That's what's triggered
Right,
it.
yeah.
That's driven it.
So I don't think anything's been done in the way of improvements for a long, long time. So it's probably an appropriate time.
Mm.
So we're happy with
Yeah.
the, we can support that. Okay. Now, to review and if necessary to amend standing orders, with excellent timing, we just got a new template through from NALC in recent weeks to account for recent legislation. The standing orders that we have, which are in your book, are basically the NALC template. All of the bold has to stay identical because that's definitely mandated by legislation. And then the rest of it, we have gone through in the past and we've made amendments to that we've then agreed that satisfy us. There's some things you have a choice on, and whatever. The trouble is that because they've just sent us a new template, apart from Yvonne having to get it onto her system, which sometimes seems to be a bit of a problem, and make it sit, it doesn't quite go on well. But we also have to sort of combine the changes they've made with the changes that we wanted, otherwise they'll just drop out of sight. So it's a bit of a faff, but it hasn't been done yet because of the new one coming in, and so I suggest we defer it until Yvonne and I go through it and try and bring a compilation back to you which has their changes and our old ones, and then anything else we feel that we should be putting to you. The other thing is that we do it each year. We didn't used to, but we are asked to do it every year, and years come around jolly quickly in a little thing like this. I don't suggest we do the financial regulations. We only did them recently, but until we've got the standing orders out of the way, they are. This doesn't have a statutory angle to it, as far as I know, and we did go through them, agreeing them, Yvonne and I, only relatively recently, and you all agreed.
Yeah.
Now we get on to finance for the year. We've got to review the effectiveness of the system of financial internal control and the internal audit. The key things are here that we have an internal auditor, which is David Chesson, who is also the treasurer of the church and used to be a councillor in his time and chairman years ago. So we have that. We have the bank reconciliations. You're putting them to councillors every so often, so that the councillors check them and sign them.
That's right.
I don't get landed with that because I'm explicitly excluded from doing it. Not allowed, just in case I'm in league with the clerk. And other financial internal controls, 2 signatures on the cheques. The chequebook is kept by the clerk, and the cheque is written by the clerk, and then you need 2 different councillors to sign it. So you've got to have 3 people involved.
Is the closure of Lloyd's Bank and Rye going to be a problem?
Not really, because I only ever pay anything in, and I'll be able to do that via the post office in Rye.
Good.
So
And you get the statements online, don't well, they may be posted to you, but you can get them online. Anyway.
they're posted, they come out by post, but I have got online banking just to look at stuff, yes.
Is there anything else I should mention on internal financial internal?
Well, only that
control?
you have the monthly statements that you see every month, so you are seeing exactly what's happening.
What's going on there, and the clerk goes off to finance conferences every other year, which I'll laugh a minute. Right. So that's where we are with internal controls. Has anyone got any concerns or any things they think we ought to be doing differently?
No.
No.
I think in terms of signing it off on a quarterly basis, it's very well, very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, that's the bank reconciliation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and that is an addition that we only just put in recently when we found that it is good practice. Okay. Now, to review an inventory of land and assets, you've got a spreadsheet come out of our land and assets, the asset register. The way the parish council accounts for assets, for the benefit of Leslie, who has a business background, same as Paul and me, it's weird. They just go in at cost, they never get depreciated. When you actually get rid of them, you just cross it off. Until then, they just stay. It's really just a list. It's an asset register, which is just a list of your assets and what you paid for them.
Right.
And if they're a gift, you put them in as a pound. It's just so you don't forget them or lose them, really, I think. It has no other financial impact, although it is reported in the annual return that goes off to the auditors. So you've got the list. It's pretty much as it stands. This is in. The total at the bottom will go into the annual return, and we are just reviewing that.
I was a little confused in the date column. My version seems to have sort of 338 days in December. And
mine didn't work in the Apple system, but it did work when I put it into Libra. So I think it's because it came out of Yvonne's Libra, which is obviously not quite a Word compatible or an Excel compatible.
And we don't write anything off until it's disposed of.
Don't write off until it is disposed of.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so we're happy with that. Right, how are we getting on? So that's the land and assets. To review interactions with residents and the public. This is a note that is in our packs, in our display books. I read that through again today. And I don't know if anyone wants to offer any suggestions to it. We agreed it about a year ago, I guess.
I had one question I was going to raise, and it's really based on some of the information that Yvonne sends out to us. And some of it is very relevant, very important, I think, and also could be of interest to the public. For example, this new publication, Rural Matters, that the police have put out. It's a good document, it's very clear, etc., etc. So I suggest to Yvonne that someone maybe put it on our website or a link to it or what have you.
Yeah, the trouble is that we made it just purely parish council.
Right.
Without
Well, my question is how so we get it, and the other one was which I think is relevant, is what to do with hazardous substance. This has come out from the police post Salisbury.
Yeah.
So we've got this we've got a leaflet in there, etc., etc. And I'm just conscious it comes to us and then doesn't go anywhere else. And I think we have a responsibility to think about how we put that out into the public. Now we could actually have a poster on a notice board. We could. I don't know how we circulate the brochure.
No, that's I did look in to see whether
because we could just put it on the news as a PDF, and then the next time it comes out, we get rid of that one because there is a news column, and we've not put anything in there since the site started. But I think something like the noxious substance, how to, we probably think in our rural community we're never going to get suspect packages or bombs or etc., etc., etc. But they probably thought that in Salisbury. And if the police are actually giving us that advice, they're giving it to us as representatives of the community, and at the moment we're not trying to disseminate that. Something I said.
There's a substance, there's obviously...
It was a noxious substance.
There's enough hazardous substances around it.
So that was my request, to see if we could find a way of disseminating that.
Okay. It's not specific. Well, it is sort of partly in the tie-up with this item and the policy that we have in our books, because we talk about the parish desk and the notice boards and things like that. This was more about being open to what comes from the public rather than their communications outwards to the public, this particular note. It was about being open to the public rather than being hidden away like we do tonight. Okay, that's something for Yvonne to think about, how, if at all, she can cope with your particular point, Paul. Because I think you're quite right that, like a lot of these things, they don't go down very easily. Having said which, the number that we get in from her, they're not all directly of interest to the public, but I find them enough to read, and I don't think the public are going to go anywhere near reading them, but that's, I suppose you could say it's up to them.
It makes it available.
It makes it available. So Yvonne can think about that, and maybe, as Paul said, just using that news thing is a possibility. If we're putting anything like that on news, we need to have a statement in the same place saying that outside stuff is not necessarily supported by the parish council, like other people do. You know, it's not necessarily the opinions of the parish council. Okay. Moving on, so we're happy with that then. To review the Council's procedures for handling requests made under the Freedom of Information Act 2000. Now we have had requests under the FOI, and they go to the clerk, and the clerk deals with them. And on occasion does them without being asked specifically under the FOI. In other words, tries to give out things that are eligible for that request. One thing that has been questioned in the past, and we've been very clear on, is that a paper, for instance, that one of us writes that comes to the council, it's not FOI-able until afterwards. They're not, the public do not have the opportunity to see papers before we've discussed them. They come here to hear our discussions. We give them an opportunity to speak as well, but they come here to hear our discussions, not to mark our cards or take part in them directly. Okay? And obviously they give us their views when they want to. So we're all right on that. So we'll review the Council's policy for dealing with the press and media. That is also in the book. The one thing I did notice is that the paragraph numbering's up the chute. So that's something that I think that's probably because it started on my machine, went on to Yvonne's, and then there's a formatting, you know, not format, what do I mean? The configuration between the programs. But otherwise I didn't notice anything. Is everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Worthwhile, by the way, everyone having that in their minds in case anything happens that drags them in with the press, because then you're always in a rush. To agree the wording of the consent form with regard to retaining information. Now, we haven't got George here tonight, who is the one who went on the course with Yvonne.
I did send it to him, he hasn't come back with any comments. This is basically one I produced for people like Bill Wilcott, Six, C, Roger, people that I'm passing stuff to that aren't anything to do with the council, but we really need to have their consent that I'm keeping there.
Yeah.
So if you're happy with
Yes.
wording on that.
Interesting that, because I knew this was on the agenda, I was looking with a spare half an hour this afternoon at the Information Commissioner's website, all about GDPR, and it emphasised what I'd also found and passed on to the clerk a week or two ago, which was a letter from the EU office in London, an official at the EU office in London, who had written into the paper a letter in the Times, let's say a fortnight ago, was from someone who ran an allotment society and was moaning, naturally enough, about how they were supposed to be writing to all their members and getting them all to write back, saying they were allowed to keep their names and addresses on the thing. And which has been the general urban myth, you know, the only thing you could do was everyone has to write back, and oh well, they'll never write back, so you'll have to delete their names and addresses, and it's taken ages to get their phone numbers, and you know, you send out the whatever and request for subscriptions. The EU man wrote back and said quite sharply, there are 6 grounds for keeping information, consent is only one of them, there are 5 more. And I looked them up, and there are 5 more. They are rather muddied by a whole load of bureaucratic problems, but broadly speaking, the parish council can do it by consent. It can also do it other ways. Paul knows, I think, more about this because he's been working in that area. The biggest problem is that you are supposed to decide and document which ground you think you have in each case. And you can't change it later, which God knows why, but that apparently, according to the Information Commission, is all part of the rules. So there are all manner of traps for the wary, let alone the unwary, but you don't necessarily have to have everyone's consent.
There's a very good short interview on, you can pick it up, it was on 5 Live, and it's the Deputy Commissioner, Steve Wood. I can't remember, but anyhow, it's a short interview. I'll send the link around, and it clarifies this really, really well. And we're now using that as part of the guidance and the audit report response and evaluation where we've done. I've just finished doing an audit today, and I've said, you know, because they were awarded 6s and 7s this particular charity, and I said, go and have a look at that. It's there in the public domain. And he's made it very clear, Steve, saying what you can do and what you don't have to do. And the interesting thing is they've put forward some sort of what I call normal questions from listeners rather than, you know, heavy duty business ones. But I'll send everyone the link. It's quite useful.
All right. I did notice, incidentally, going along with what I'd said and what Paul's just said, you've probably all had the same. I've had a whole rush of them coming in lately, and people saying, you know, it's our privacy statement and this, that and the other. Not one has asked for consent. They have said, we're doing this, etc. They did have to write to me, you know, this is bank, this is charity, this is whatever, but none of them are asking for consent, so they're all relying on one of those other 5.
Well, also you're an existing customer. In future, post May 25th, they will ask for consent.
This is all in advance of that. No,
when the regulation actually finally comes on the statute. But they're all panicking at the moment because they're suddenly realising that May the 25th is.
I think, according to the ICO, I think if they want to do it by consent, it's got to be in advance, because otherwise, by the time May 25th comes, they should have deleted it.
I've had an all series of requests for consent.
Yes, indeed. But asking for consent or just telling you?
No, for consent.
Oh, really?
The best example of clear communication in detail that I've seen in the last 6-7 weeks is if anyone's a member of Benenden, that what they sent out was by far, it was in plain English, it was very detailed, but it's been set up in a sort of like a grid format, and it's accessible. Whereas other ones like good old Marks and Spencer's have managed to find, I think, 6-point typeface or something. It's unbelievable how small it is. But it is what it is, and we'll see some action on May the 26th, actually, maybe.
Or not.
Because there's a big department to be paid for.
Well, it's true. All right. So, we've agreed this consent form for those, Brian, for these special cases.
Yeah.
If I can have them back, if you don't need them, then I can use them back.
Right.
Fill mine in.
I've seen.
No, you're councillor.
I've seen mine as well.
No, you did.
I'm quite happy.
They did for
Oh, don't finish.
No.
Keep up. Right, okay, that's GDPR. To further consider the request to have two names added to the War Memorial, we heard a bit from Colin at the discussion with the Royal British Legion the other day. You've done some research,
Yeah.
Colin, on the name,
Yeah.
which basically supported what Dave Fletcher had already told us, I think. Do we know any more about this rather vexed subject of
We cannot get to the bottom.
context under which they weren't included?
No. And it seems to be a very. I mean, I was going to use the word a grey area. It seems like a black hole. As to the reasons why in 1919 or in 1940 neither gentleman was put on the list, but Aldred is in church.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my examination of the information that when both individuals died, they were still serving members of the British Army.
Right.
And in fact, it's following their death that Samuel Pope, just before his death, was working at Scapa Floor, manning an enemy gun. And about less than a month later, he died. He died and he is buried in Wittersham Cemetery, which is right. He received the Victory Medal, the British War Medal, and a Memorial Death Plaque as well. And it was given to his widow in 1919. I could find no reason from the information with the Royal Marines or the Royal Marine Artillery why he was not considered to be entered onto the memorial. And
Did he live in this area? Is he from this area?
He lived in the area at the time, but his wife, in 1919, was living at Gateridge Park in Hemel Hempstead.
Does being on one memorial in one village exclude you from being on several? Can you appear on a number?
You kind of, as far as I can ascertain, you could appear on a number.
You could be on every one in the county if you wanted to be.
You can certainly be on a grave, in one of the Commonwealth War Graves cemeteries, and also appear on a memorial, which is what the cenotaph is.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, do we know for certain that
there is no evidence
that appear at Scapa Flow or indeed elsewhere?
From the information that Royal Artillery, Marine Artillery, there is no record that he's on any other.
Because you can see a family saying, well, actually, don't put him on Wittersham because we've already got him
Put
on
somewhere else. But there's no evidence in the records of the armies anywhere else, and it's the same with Aldred.
Because I always thought that the names that went on the one memorial were people from the village or this area.
Yes.
That's why I asked.
And it's the same because Aldred died in 1940 on the 8th of December, and he'd been working on as a gunner in South East London. He was killed in a crash, but in fact he was still a serving man, and he was awarded two medals and was given to his family, who yet again were not living they were living at South Woodford in Essex.
So both of these individuals, the evidence shows that they were honoured.
Yes.
For their
service.
So because one concern way back was maybe there were a little bit sort of something wrong with them or shot at door, I don't know, whatever. But they're clearly the evidence is they're honoured. One's buried and one's in the churchyard and one's on the church war memorial, church memorial. So to me, it seems I can't think of any reason why we wouldn't accede to the request from the Royal British Legion and get on with it.
And get on with it.
The fact is that one is buried in the churchyard, so he had at least some connection with Wittersham.
Yes.
Because you didn't just pick a village out to get buried there, presumably. Whether it was because he had a girlfriend here, or whether he had an aunt or a granny or something. Who knows?
They're both in the Royal Artillery, believe it or not.
Yes.
There was some connection with Wittersham anyway.
But Samuel Ellis Pope, his second name Ellis.
Yes, it was a good name to follow because his surname is Ellis, Ellice. I could find no reason why we should not accept the request of the Royal British
And
Legion.
we've got the space, have we? Did we?
Well, that's
Well,
another issue.
It's quite
Oh,
tricky,
okay.
but because they are distinguished between the 1418 and the 3945. I think I remember the 3945 was okay, but the 1418 is difficult because the place where there would have been a space, they've put one in the middle instead of on the left-hand side. But that is
it could
as
just be
Colin
slightly
says,
quirky,
it's
couldn't it?
a different question.
And you know, so from examination of the information that we have, you know, there is no feeder back to 1940 or 1922 as the reason why they were not included at the time.
Yeah.
If we put them on, we're not realistically going to upset anybody.
That's
And you know, and
Yeah.
why shouldn't they be honoured?
Well, that's the only remaining question, I suppose. Would this bring some more out of the woodwork who are, why isn't there one on there?
It's possible, isn't it? But that wouldn't matter, would it?
No.
Well, we'd run out of space then, but apart
Well,
from
that's a new dilemma. We'll cover that.
Yeah, of course, that's
But the
from committee.
request was from the Royal British Legion that
Yes.
they felt these two
Yes.
gentlemen should be
No,
honoured.
you're right.
well,
Yes.
I think.
Okay.
seems a very valid
Are
request.
people comfortable with that? Would you, someone like to propose that?
Propose it.
Paul will propose it and Alan will second it. Are people, you're obviously happy with it?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're doing
I'm
research,
content
you
with it.
happy,
Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's unanimous then. So we will, we did find out roughly how much it was going to cost, and I suppose what we should do is to also approve at this stage the amount we're going to spend on it.
Yes.
I only had one quote, I could ask for another one.
Bursland wouldn't do that sort of thing and clean it while they're at it, would they? For a discounted
Well,
fee.
Well, I did get
You know, give it a clean up while you're putting the name on.
Oh,
Well, I haven't asked Bursland's is one that I haven't
Clearly
asked.
lost to the NHS.
yes,
What did you
yes.
get
It
from
just
the one
seems-
you-
You
what did you
might
get
get the
from
clean thrown in, you know.
What did you get from the one you did ask?
£242.
For one name or two names?
Two names.
Two names.
Couldn't you ask him, you know, would he mind giving it a bit of a clean up while he's there and just see what he charges?
It's like,
You
Right.
might
Well, this one is the one I've got
Something
with,
like
that
that.
when you wanted to use that high powered stuff.
Okay,
So, what do we do? Just waiting till I...
we could talk to both of them, but at this stage, thank you very much for coming. Bye-bye.
Can we also,
If we
can we
confirm
also
that-
make sure that we can get the work done in good time? Because it would be a bit embarrassing if come November the 5th
No,
this wasn't done.
Yeah, indeed.
These guys could get busy.
Oh,
Or
indeed.
11th.
Yeah.
I'll work now.
Okay, so if we agree that the clerk can go away and organise that, and
Yeah,
we're happy to
definitely.
spend up to 300, I suppose, that's a bit more than the 250.
I think it's the least we can do at this point in time.
Okay,
And resolve
right,
it.
that's all agreed then. On we go. To consider and agree to setting
It's a good
aside
gift to all.
an area in the cemetery for a rose garden for the scattering of ashes. Now, think in your minds about the new cemetery and the point that it's going to have, the narrow point that is closest to the church.
Yeah.
That we can't bury anybody in any way because it's not big enough. It's a narrow thing. Obviously, you can't go right to the point anyway, but it's going to be pretty narrow along there. There has been a request from someone who would like to bury ashes, scatter ashes with a rose or roses. So it's a request to think about doing that. Obviously, it's got to be waiting until the cemetery is organised. I think the plan in your mind and theirs would be that they would provide the rose bush, the standard rose.
Correct.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
what I've got to find out more about. What I basically wanted was
Yeah.
your thoughts on whether we can actually go ahead with this sort of thing
I had a conversation, you see, with the person.
with the same. I've never been asked before.
No, and I think this is what the first impression was. You know, it's,
Well, I did say that
yes,
I've never
it's,
been.
it's surprising because you know from the villages I've been previously, when you know there has been a space available for that.
What we have is a little
Facility.
two by two plots
Yeah.
where they
Yes. Yeah.
Cremated remains go in. And yes, what I have found out that, because I went back to ICCM after my course, yes, Yes, it's important to note there is a difference between scattering of ashes and burying them.
Yeah.
If they are buried, whether they are contained or not, they're protected by law and should be registered as a burial. If they are scattered loosely on the ground or just under, that is not classed as a burial and don't therefore need to be registered as such.
I think that you need to go back on the issue. I mean, it certainly wasn't clarified during my discussions yesterday.
Right, well this will...
I think the person was emotionally upset, but he wanted to talk.
But do you mean that he wanted to scatter them, or that he wanted
No,
to
no,
bury them, or we don't know which?
he didn't know which. What he wanted, if I understand it correctly, that the space within the burial ground where the ashes could be placed, whatever that means at this point in time, it hadn't been worked through exactly what.
Okay.
But the proximity to the church was extremely important.
Oh, right. So, in other words, the
that's-
existing cremated remains is too far because it's right at the other end.
Well, I think
But
within...
that's not an issue because I have spaces that I can fill. I can put cremated remains in anywhere.
Yes, I know you can. I think that the idea of being able to have a rose and to be able to go if and when at this stage was very, very important.
In that case, it needs to be sooner rather than...
I personally think it probably does. It was too soon. There were so many things flying up in the air at the same time. Giles and I was with the person yesterday.
Is this an opportunity to do something? I mean, first of all, I guess you can't really actually stop someone just going in and scattering ashes. I mean, it's not an offence, criminal offence.
Not a criminal offence.
So this seems like a very reasonable request. If we've got a little bit of land that we can't practically really use for anything else, is this not an opportunity to not only just take into account this request, but actually I could see maybe a few rose bushes and maybe even a garden bench, and almost make it a small area for contemplation and respecting people's wishes to do just that.
Would it be the individual person, planting a rose bush, or are we talking about making a garden?
I think the latter,
once you make a garden, then you've got to maintain it. That's the problem.
You see,
Can I say that the crematorium, obviously much bigger than this that I'm involved with, they have rose beds, and you can, I won't say buy a rose, lease it, whatever you call it, for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you can have a plaque that goes
with it.
And if you want, you can have the ashes underneath it, and you pay, and that money goes towards the upkeep of the rose and whatever. I know it's on a bigger scale.
This is what I want to find more about because
but they also have scattering, which they don't actually charge for.
I think there's two questions in there. I would support Paul in that it may be appropriate at this time that we set something aside for this very purpose.
Yes.
And it's only come up now because of the immediacy or in the imminent situation to be resolved.
But this particular one I can talk to and I can arrange something.
I think that was very useful. I know he spoke to you.
Okay, well the new cemetery will be a while away.
Yes,
so
but
if we could consider
a
rose garden in the new...
I would certainly totally support some kind of rose gardening in remembrance of whoever.
But I think it's possibly something that the council may have to buy the roses as opposed to somebody coming along and plopping a rose in.
Well, don't forget we had that issue, didn't we, of a tree being planted.
Alf, when I mentioned it to Alf, his thought was that a standard rose would be better because he can then mow around it. When you've got lots, it's less upkeep as far as maintenance as far as he's concerned.
I think the thought of the rose was the most important, not the type of rose at that point in time.
But the cemetery would be different.
But I think we should go that one step further. Now it's been raised with something we haven't got in the village. I think we should have one.
Okay, all right.
And I can look in further into what sort of, so that'll give me time to do that.
But you'll do something meanwhile.
In the meantime I can. It's not a problem.
while our mind is on the cemetery, do we have any expectations of work starting soon?
Well, I would think so, yes, because I did have a query
It's
in
dry
the
now.
yes, but
Yeah. Okay.
The ground may have dried out now,
Should have done.
or partially.
so the next one.
Right, the draft memorandum, to agree the draft memorandum of understanding with Wittersham RBL and the church. Colin and I and the clerk met RBL to their team and Judy about a week ago, and to discuss some points that I'd suggested, and nothing else came up. I've knocked that into the draft that you've got here, which has been circulated to the other two bodies. The one thing that I circulated it before thinking about this, we should actually be appending, the RBL have a programme for the ceremony on the Remembrance Day. That needs to be appended as a standard,
Yes.
even if it gets flexed. It's the,
Yes,
it's the
you've got it. Yes,
the general.
yes, I've got a copy.
yeah. And also that it'll have to be referenced in here. But in principle, that's, I mean, I'm not saying that people couldn't write this better, but the idea is really just to get something down. Now, it would be fair to say that the RBL don't see what the point is, and the church thinks it's a good idea.
We did discuss in a past meeting about whether or not we could just we could close the road for 10 minutes, 15 minutes,
We did.
because of all the traffic
Yeah.
that goes by.
Yeah.
And I put that,
Last
I put
year
that
it
to
was
Cal.
incredibly busy.
I put that to Cal,
You know.
and he said that he would take it up with KCC, and I haven't heard back.
Right.
Whether he ever remembered, I don't
Should
know.
that go in here?
Um,
Because I would see the Legion would be responsible for standing there, and maybe, you know, because it's unlikely we're going to get sort of a squad
Good
of
point.
Kent's finest.
Or you and I can just block the road.
I think you see,
Yeah, or
George,
the tractor.
George is usually does it. George has his
It's a very aggressive stance, if I may say.
all right, let's keep it together because we need to move on. Yvonne has just said that George will have his high vis on, so that's a possibility.
Yes,
we
he
have
does.
also put
They do
cones
have
out.
stewards.
But if we get the road closed, which will depend on my proposal to Calc a few months ago, that they should lobby the government to get it done free of fees.
Yeah.
I mean, the alternative, of course, is we just do it locally, but we might get an awful lot of hooting. So that's a possibility then.
I think the British Legion were happy that we, entered into discussions and clarity, even if they.
You were very positive.
Well, I felt more positive than you did. They were more concerned about the.
No, it was the reaction when Yvonne got onto them afterwards that I was commenting.
Well, I think they're more concerned about the garden itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were that, yes. That's also true.
Really?
Okay, so are we happy with
I'm
this?
happy. I thought the Legion was reasonably happy because they were being heard.
It's always simple.
So we then get to the annual return. Right. The annual return is a set piece that we have to go through in exactly the right order, and the clerk knows all about it.
Which bit comes first then?
We've got this list of things that we have to go through first, haven't we?
Yes, it's all in order.
Yeah.
So we have to consider the findings of the review first.
That's right.
You've got this piece of paper from Yvonne. Yes.
Annual return, yeah, here we go.
Section 1.
Section 1.
Here we go.
But first of all, before all that, we've got to consider the findings of the review, which we did further up. So anything that we found, we're happy with everything.
The review of internal
Yes.
controls, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Now, resolve to approve the annual governance statement, which is all those lovely bits. So you've all got the questions as they come up. This is how it looks like on the form, by
That's
the way.
right.
So
Mhm.
but you've got it both there, so you have to answer yes or no. So question 1, put in place arrangements for effective financial management, etc. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
We maintained an adequate system of internal control, etc.
We've already said we've got that.
Yes.
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 We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, etc.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're all happy with that.
We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance, etc. That's when the things go on the notice boards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have them.
And
So in other
contribute.
words, that's about a
Yeah.
year ago, and
Yeah.
this one will be later.
Right.
Yes.
We carried out an assessment of the risks facing this authority, etc.
Management. We've got external insurance. Yes.
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 We maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit, the accounting records, which we've said
Which
earlier
we've
we
done.
did.
Yeah.
We took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports of internal and external audit. Well, there weren't any on either. We had a letter from David and
No
saw
points
the
raised.
form and there were no comments made on those.
Good.
We considered whether any litigation liabilities or commitments, events or transactions, etc.
Mhm.
That's a no
Right.
then. So they're all yeses until that one.
No, it's a yes because it means that we've
Oh, we
disclosed.
consider
We did,
whether-
yes.
And
We
we have
consider
anything to
whether-
disclose.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Right, so now,
So they're all yeses, right?
so this has, so I had to work out the minutes were, so it's
Doesn't do anything, is it?
5, 18, signed by the chairman and the
There you
clerk,
go.
so chairman there.
I think this machine's getting quite old.
Tell you what we should just do. So can I have a proposer and we've gone through all the yeses. Who's going to propose and second in the whole group?
Yes.
Colin and Sue, and everyone
Yeah.
unanimous with that. Okay. So they've been properly proposed and seconded rather than just on our slightly more everyday arrangement. Okay, that's that bit. Then, so that's A, B, C.
Hurrying us along.
D is the
The one
accounting
expected,
statements.
Which is the other one we had with all the figures, this is how it looks.
Numbers on it.
Raw.
Oh, sorry. In the other annual returns, right?
It's the one I printed it sideways, but I mean, it's
Oh,
just
so
a
that's
handful
why
of
it's all
numbers.
come out as.
Yeah.
It's the really bizarre one where the numbers
Turn
add
around.
up, but they're slightly off.
That's a jolly good idea.
There's only eight figures in 2 columns, or 16.
It's amazing what brains do it.
Yeah. Just launched 2 nuclear attack weapons.
Okay. So those numbers are basically entering in with some addition what we had in the end of year
Yeah.
last month.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Is that number 9, the total fixed assets, of course, reflects the figure that we talked about earlier on, and what we thought was the inventory. So if anyone was trying to get a picture of how flush we were, that's the complete red herring. Isn't it? You know, effectively,
yeah.
if you normally said what the total fixed assets of the business,
It's called a creative accountancy.
that's what the creation is of accountancy.
Pick a number.
Absolutely. It keeps going up. That's
No fixed assets number. Oh, there it is. Right, so we've done that. We're whizzing through this.
Yeah.
So we've resolved to. I should have had someone actually to nominate, to propose and second that we're doing the accounting statements. Paul
second.
and Leslie. And everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Signed them already, right? So we have approved them formally as well. Signed and dated is done.
Yep.
Right. Then we get to Mary Walton's correspondence that we've dealt with.
Would you send her a note, or would the clerk send her a note to say
I think that
what
would be a
action
good
we're taking?
idea. Yeah. Good point. And we will follow through with what Colin suggested earlier. Right, we're on to Cayman Company's insurance renewal.
Right, now this, they've had problems with power or something, so I've got what they sent out, the renewal form, but the other things that we've had, I've had to add to it.
Yeah.
I've asked them for a new figure, but they haven't managed to get that through to me yet. So I suggest that we pay this, and if there is any extra to pay, then that goes on. But remember, it was Hiscox, and we had a 3-year term from last year.
Right.
Remember. So if you're happy, it's £872.84.
And
That's without the addition.
Just
No.
remind
That's
me
without
what-
the addition.
The
Is
additions.
that for property, public liability?
Yes, it's
And machinery,
Not the vehicle.
not the vehicle.
it's
So the machinery.
assets and income protection, material damage,
Yeah.
subsidence, money, stroke assault, income protection, defibrillators, office equipment, liability, employers' liability, public liability,
Liability.
hirers' liability, professional risks, libel and slander, officials' indemnity liability, employee dishonesty, legal expenses, benefits, personal and accidents, key person.
Okay. Everything except the vehicle.
Is the key person very highly insured? I'm assuming it's you. Can't think of anything else.
Right. Who wants to propose that? 872?
Yeah.
Colin?
Yeah.
Sue? Right, good. Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Unanimous? Right. The LCR annual subscription, that's the glossy magazine we get from NALC. We have to pay for this up separately, £17 a year.
Agreed.
Yes, everyone's happy with that? Now, there's a request from Wittersham Sports Club Committee for a donation to assist with the cost of hiring a marquee for the Royal Wedding Village Tea Party, which they're holding on the 19th of May.
Am I going to do that?
We had a letter in from the secretary of the club.
I can't possibly comment.
Who wants to comment on that?
Go on, Paul.
It's a formal request. I think they plan. I think they're catering for 150.
Just thinking, actually, I didn't declare an
Interest.
and who else is members of the club? You are?
Yes.
It's not a financial.
It's not, no, it's another than.
Okay.
So we
Yes.
should actually declare, and we can do it at this point, having got to it.
All
So
of us.
you're a member as well, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's me, Paul, Colin and Alan are all members of the club. That's another than pecuniary interest. I won't even be there to go and have a cup of tea, so it's definitely other than pecuniary.
Don't worry, I'll take your donation with me.
So who wants to speak about?
I was just saying that I thought that the clerk circulated the letter, the request. It's a formal request. The parameters are that I think they plan to have 150. They're catering for 150
They're all
people. A lot of volunteers doing work there, donating food, etc., etc. I think they're very wise in this country to plan for potentially inclement weather. It's the only thing that's going on in the village that's sort of quote organised or official, and I think we should support it. I can't remember off the top of my head the overall cost. Was it like
560. 560 was the
About
cost.
560.
So obviously we,
And I would.
if we agree we should be giving them a good slice.
I think we should do 50% of it on a match. You know, we'll whatever we put forward, they raise the rest.
We have,
Quite reasonable.
just to bear in mind, we have £600 in the budget for donations. I have actually today, through the post, victim support, we normally give £50 to each year, because we broke it down to a small amount each year, rather than a big amount every now and again. I've had Citizens Advice Bureau have asked, and Air Ambulance have asked. They're asking for 300, 250 is what we've given them in the past. It's just that those are ones they're already on the agenda for next month, because obviously too late for this month. But just to bear in mind that that's,
So that's
not the only
50 to one, 250 to the other.
250 and 50 is what we have given before.
I think as time goes on, we're going to
We
get more
also-
and more requests.
Yeah.
But haven't we also said that we don't do some of them every year? We sort of do one every
Well, no, it
other
was-
year and that.
Well, we didn't do Air Ambulance thanked us for last year, but we didn't actually give anything. They didn't ask last year. We didn't give anything last year. And we were giving £100 to victim support every other year, but we said because they were sending the letters in, we said right, we'll give them £50 each year.
Right, okay.
And is that where do we get the funds that go into that fund? We've got an
600.
amount.
600 is in the budget, it comes out of the
Okay.
precinct.
And we have other monies in that we could use for.
I was going to say, isn't the Royal Wedding, whether you think very much of it or not, I mean, this is an extraordinary event, we're having to give to it every year.
Oh yes, indeed. It is only once off.
It's just that that's what we have budgeted to spend on
Yeah.
donations.
I mean, this be an extraordinary item.
Yeah.
You should do it.
Yeah.
I think we should treat it as an extraordinary.
Right.
And it brings into, if we're going to treat that, it brings in the next agenda item, which is also an extraordinary event, but
Yes, that's slightly different.
yes, so we could dress everything up as an extraordinary event, I suppose.
Yes, but that money would come into us, that's not going to cost us anything.
Yes.
They're asking to donate.
Maybe they'll give us the money, Alan, not the other way.
Yeah, in that sense. But I think you.
So they're not asking us for
No.
money.
No, they're asking to purchase.
To give. Okay.
So let's go back to the 560 is going to cost them. Paul suggested 50%. Does anyone have any alternatives to that?
I mean,
The clerk obviously is anxious that
yes,
we
I'd
shouldn't
like
be
to
too
see
generous.
something donated to it because I think it's a very worthwhile thing they're doing for the village. But I'm slightly concerned that we're at the beginning of the year to be laying out that amount of money. That's the only thing I've got
We don't want to
concern
be
with.
too sort of minimal. What about 200 if you're anxious about the amount rather than
Well,
280?
We do have other funds around if need be.
I don't think it's worth quibbling over it.
I don't think it's worth the £50. I would have thought 50% is a reasonable
Okay.
request.
All right. So if Paul and Leslie and Colin are on for 280,
I think 280 is okay.
all right.
Fine.
Okay, so we'll go unanimously with 280 then. Thank you, Sue. And that is, like you said, sort of like match funding. Okay. I don't think we can do that often, but and I think that it's a fair point for us to realise that is for the village.
Yes.
I mean, it is
Precisely.
organising it,
Yeah.
but then they've got the space to put up a marquee. There aren't many places.
Let's just hope there's not another royal wedding in the next year.
Indeed. We don't have
It's
to
something we don't know.
Right. Okay, now the next one that Alan's already commented on, the request from the Sweatman family to donate money for the purchase of the seat. This is where they would like to donate money for us to purchase the seat because firstly we have to own it if we strip the VAT off it.
Yeah.
And secondly it will sit on our land anyway. So it's better that we own it. They'll give us the money, we will own it. It will be in memory of their lost member.
Who maintains it if it's nicked or damaged? I suppose we do.
Well, technically, it goes our property, isn't it?
Actually, that's a good point, though. Should we have one that's sort of
fireproof?
Well, I think if fastened to the ground, you can get some that because the last thing we want is it to go walk.
Can I just? This is the original email that I had from Nick that said, "This is his words."
Are you sure you should read them?
Yes, it's just.
What are those black bits that?
It's the red bit that I'm worried
Well,
about.
you'll know now. Me and the family are thinking of some sort of memorial in the village for Pam. Haven't come to any decisions yet, but one thought was a memorial bench possible in the village green next to Carnation Field. One bench up there looks pretty poor, even Ernie Stones looks old already. Think if we'd done one, we'd do it in long-lasting teak. What would I need to do to get permission if we wanted to do this? It's early days for me, but just trying to get on with things. So that's when I went back and explained that, like Ernie Stone one, if they give us the money, then but they've got to arrange what they want.
Yeah.
They do all the saying what it is that they want, and then Bill comes and I pay it. But we've also got to think where might it go, because we already have two up on the green. One's got metal, did you say it was?
I think it's
what is
metal.
it? Yes, it is metal. And
Cast
the
iron or
first,
something.
and the first
Cast iron.
piece, the bench bit, the first piece of slat really that you would sit on isn't there. But that's the one that's sort of behind the memorial, the war memorial,
Lord,
so you're looking out. It's rather nice.
It is
and then
nice.
of course the other one is further back where we used to have a shelter when my kids were little. When they took that away and put a bench there instead.
The one that's got the slat missing, is that in memorial of somebody else?
Not that I'm aware of. It's only
So
well, there's three because only Stone's one is set.
We could do with that being repaired
Well,
then.
that's a possibility
Yeah.
of saying if they wanted to replace the slats, then that could be, have the plaque on there.
But they might well want.
I don't think that would be. Maybe is the one that's missing a slat? Is that permanent?
That's the one I'm
Yes,
talking about.
yeah.
Okay, so you can't remove that.
No.
Okay.
Because
interesting enough, in the Wheel of Kent magazine, I noticed there's a company that actually specialises in refurbished slatted benches. But there you go. It's in the latest issue for £150, I think. So 160. I thought it was very reasonable, but there you go. So they're metal ends and wooden slats.
Do I understand at this stage, Mr. Swetman isn't mentioning an amount of money?
No, it's no amount.
No
but
amount.
if they're buying, and he wants it in, as I say, in long-lasting teak. He wants it to last.
I understand. So it's not going to be cheap.
No.
I mean, recently bought one from one of my relatives. It isn't cheap.
No.
Is there anywhere else we can put one in there? Because it would be a nice place. Now you can see out everywhere.
It is.
Is there anywhere like on the side or? No.
Go and have a look, I guess.
Because it's a lovely place to sit in to look
Well,
out now.
Are we sure? I mean, it's a question for him. But are we sure that he would not want simply to replace the teak on the one that's already got its? I mean, all that we keep is the two things that hold it, the two metal ends.
I think that if you're doing a memorial bench,
You'd like
it's the whole thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not
I think it's good.
That's like rebadging,
Yes.
even if there's not a badge.
Yeah, it is in recognition, and I think that's important.
Perhaps it might be an idea. I don't know. Maybe you could have a visit with him, Yvonne, up there, and say
See what he thinks.
where would he want it.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he understands that that's not then de facto exactly, but it would be good to get a recommendation because at the moment we're not.
The benefit of a visit is it gives him a choice.
Yes,
He could either do what I'm
Yes.
saying, which is in the nicest place, or try and find somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, what we don't want to do is, at one level, is to have the green completely filled up with benches all the way round. On the other hand, of course, the Swetman family have been around a long time.
And I think there's a recognition, so if everyone can spend an occasion to take him round and say, well,
And Swetman were on the council, I think, in the past, weren't they?
Oh, Mick was the chair. Mick was the chairman.
Yeah.
Well, Mick was a councillor.
Yeah. So are we agreeing to it?
We're agreeing to Yvonne going with him to
I'll
see
put it down
what
for
the
me.
suggestions are.
And we thank his generosity.
Okay.
Memorial, what was he like?
Right, the next one is this request to divert part of a public right of way, which Yvonne will tell us about a little bit more in a moment. The thing is that moving footpaths is a whole legal palaver, which has to be gone through with KCC and the footpaths officers. It's one of them in Wittersham and one of them at Stonecombe Ebony, and it's Tim Piper behind it, and Yvonne can tell us more about it.
Right, it's how many of you know the footpaths in Wittersham?
Depends where.
Happy Green, down to the Rother.
I've walked them all, but I don't know one from another.
He knows them very well.
Ham Green to the Rother. Is that through Alan's back garden?
Afternoon tea.
Well,
yes.
This is the Rother.
That's the Rother.
And the church is up here.
Yeah.
And the footpath comes down. And it goes across the field.
That's right.
And this is where it goes through to College
Wood.
And then it comes down, and this is where it comes down to the river.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what they want to do, this is a larger, area. Instead of where the footpath comes from, this is Payne's Cottage.
Yeah.
Instead of it going across like that, which is what it does at the moment, they want to take it down the track like that. Well, the thing is, as far as we're concerned, we only ever walk down the track. We have never ever walked the correct line
And
across that because
And this is being recorded now.
we haven't. It's
Well, walking down a track doesn't offend many people.
No, I always walk down the track.
Yes,
But
well, not
you're not.
not always. It
Not always.
depends. Most of the time,
I
because
walk down the path.
actually on Piper's other piece up
Yeah.
by Acton Cottage, we walk round the edge of the building and we don't walk across. Whereas the other one, we do walk right across rather than go round. But this, we haven't, because it's never been walked. And as you can see, it's a bit of a weird one to try and follow that. Isn't easy.
I'm impressed there's a record of it.
And
It's on
this
the
is
definitive rights
KCC
of
that
way
want to move.
Yes, well no. Tim Piper wants to move it because he wants to put vines there.
Oh, that's where he wants to put them, is it?
At one of the places where he wants to
Interesting.
put them.
Right.
the key in effect legally is he wants to extinguish the old one, but he's willing to grant a new one. And extinguishing a right of way is a difficult thing.
I'm going to say.
As far as I'm
I can't see
concerned,
any
it's
reason.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
bow
can
to your
walk that one
experience
at a time,
of walking it.
yes,
And I mean, if the local walkers were up in
Yes.
arms and
Exactly.
putting
Yeah.
up the barricades, etc., but it's the exact opposite to that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
It
And
is
actually makes
it's
more
so
sense.
similar.
it also
Yes.
reinforces what you're actually doing and
Mm.
enshrines that legally,
Yeah.
which is actually more of a protection.
Yes, it's
Mm.
It's someone because
So-
you always got to assume
Just
property gets
obvious.
sold
Yeah.
in
So
future.
we're supporting the.
So that's-
the
that's our one. We have to comments. I agree the proposed diversion is in the landowner's interest. I do not agree because I agree proposed diversion is not substantially less convenient to the public. I agree the proposed diversion will not negatively impact upon public enjoyment of the route. I agree that the new point of termination will not be substantially less convenient to the public. So those are things.
Yeah.
However, then when we come to the next two, there are two, but they're in stone, and I've never walked them.
Well, isn't
I
that
don't
for Stone
know.
Parish Council?
Well, stone, I've been asked. I did go back to KCC and say how come. And they said, well, they do ask the neighbouring one as well. But these are more slightly, I can see sort of why. At the moment, I don't really know the old schoolhouse, Churchlands Farm. I don't know it at all.
I do.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it comes straight across, and he wants to divert it around the edge. So that's where it's not quite so good, because you're using a footpath that normally would go that way, and you're going to have to go right. And this is the same. See, that footpath comes all the way down like that, and he wants to take it round the edge.
And is round that edge, is that in effect going to be round sort of by the hedge or something? The edge of the field?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a field edge.
Yes.
Right.
Field about
Field
trees
edge.
taking.
So it's
Each
not,
way.
it's not
So you
being
can see
a direct
why.
route.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't really-
I think we would safely say that we've got no specific objection, no
Leave it to Stone.
objection, but Stone must advise further on this.
Well,
Yes, that's their problem.
she said, could you do your best, please?
What Stone?
As I said, well, I don't know it.
Yeah, but
What did
No, I'm not
Stone
expert.
say?
It's up to Stone to make a
It's up
decision,
to them.
really, isn't
I
it?
think
Who is
so.
she?
We're not going to.
Who's
Who I got,
So, am I assuming then
Marcy and
that
McLaughlin
Stone
is
would have
one
a
I-
copy of this letter
Yes.
referring to the one down to College Wood?
Yeah, probably.
That seems
Well, I think that we've got theirs, they're going to have ours.
Well, no, exactly. Well, that seems incredibly
The logic-
long-winded.
the
Except
logic
that they
just
often
being
do
that
ask neighbouring parish
Our
councils.
people may
In the
walk
same way they
somewhere
ask
else.
neighbours about planning consent, don't they?
So who's the other side then of us?
Oh,
No, presumably Rother.
Peasmarsh?
Peasmarsh. They get asked as well. I can't believe that's John.
not just.
Because that's
That's
abroad, foreign,
I
isn't
think
it?
that's counterboundary.
All right, come on, let's leave Eve on.
I agree with Alan. I think that's.
We're going to
Come on.
not object to the one in Wittersham, and we're going to
Not
say
no
that we don't
objection,
object
just
to
out
the
of
other one, but
interest,
it's not
thank
really
you.
our
Look at
business.
some-
That's right.
Okay, let's move on.
That does actually go.
Okay, the certificate of membership for ACRK we've got for next year.
Not that I can open it.
Note.
Yeah.
Yvonne had in a letter read barn and garage at Ewan Lamb Mews, and this is only for noting. Are you going to read it to us all? Yes.
This is from
Just
Leslie
next door
Bliss.
to
Okay, listen, please.
I received this letter on Monday the 16th of April, note the date 8th of September. My neighbours also received the same and informed me that there was an incident whilst I was in Cyprus when Mr Southgate accessed the barn stroke garage in the Mews. Obviously this had nothing to do with me and I wonder why he sent me the letter. However, apparently his behaviour has been somewhat threatening and he is claiming, hearsay as I was not here, that he intends to redevelop the said barn. I feel that the Parish Council should be made aware, as I also understand that the erection of fencing without permission in a preservation area is illegal. On a personal note, I did have issues with Mr Southgate when I first moved in 11 years ago, and on the advice of my solicitor I've had no further dealings with him, so would prefer that my name is kept out of any action. Thank you for your attention. And the letter was, Dear Resident, read the barn. After a visit last week, this was dated the 8th of September 2018. After a visit last week to our property, we were unable to access the barn as both of the locks have been vandalised. It appears that glue or some form of substance has been purposely injected into the locks, therefore we were unable to unlock either of them. As a result, we will have to force entry, which will cause damage to the door and locks, and we will have to replace both hasps and locks. If vandalism to our property continues, we will remove the trees and shrubs, erect terrace fencing around the area to protect our property. We will also contact the police if this happens again. So she just wanted us to know that was going on.
Yes. I don't think there's anything we can do, is there?
No.
No, if he did put up house fencing, then I would think that would be an issue.
Can I just make a point? You might want to just mention this without necessarily mentioning her name, because she asked me to the lady whose name escapes me, who is now, as I think, still the PCSO for the area. Kate? Yeah.
Kate.
And just mention it to her, because it seems to me that if he's accusing a certain behaviour, then it's really, and he couldn't get in. It's a bit strange he didn't report that to the police, because you can just online, and you don't have to destroy the hasp and staple, etc., probably to get in there. But I just think from a point of view of just for the future, just quietly mentioning to her so she's got a record of that, because if he starts doing what he's threatening to do in there, then that could become a bigger issue. At the moment, there's not much we can do. We can just report it, because a concerned member of the public has reported to us. We're passing it on to the authorities. Assuming he hasn't already passed it on.
There has been a bit of grief from the past.
Yeah, no, I think it has. Yes. You see the chap that he owns the rotting pole, doesn't he?
Well, the borough.
He's not the resident at
No, he doesn't live there.
No,
right,
we don't live there.
Okay.
No.
Anyhow, just to record it, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a problem with green.
Right. Okay. We now go on to this curious term here, working together. That is the joint LGA NALC consideration that I went to in London and reported last month.
Yeah.
About different levels of councils working together. The report is now coming out shortly. Guide, sorry. And it is definitely going to feature Wittersham. This is a national report going to all the councils, and it's going to have a little box on Wittersham and the caretaker scheme. Yvonne did read me out their draft of what they said, which was a bit flowery and not quite how it happened, but never mind. It does have Wittersham and Ashford in there. For some reason, Kent has missed out. I did report it all at the Tenterden Forum last week, and they got all excited about that. Now, the launch is on Monday, isn't it?
No. That was the Invicta.
Oh, that's the Invicta.
Wednesday I can do.
Wednesday you're going to?
The 16th.
Yeah, okay. Yvonne is going to go to that.
Unless everybody else wants to, of course. I don't want to stop you.
Is this another complimentary breakfast? You go.
Paul, with overnight stay.
That's It'll travel
Right,
off.
okay. So Yvonne is going to go to that
Your
and
treat.
see what the vibes are.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's nice to have a mention, even if it is a little bit, as I say. And you'll presumably get a copy of the report.
Yes, you do.
Mm.
Indeed. And I expect it'll be online as well. Okay. Working party report. Yes, since it was mentioned, just parenthetically, Invicta are doing the course that they were supposed to do in February when I was going to go on GDPR. Invicta is our retained lawyers. They've now just told us it's going to be on Monday, and I'm in France, so I can't go.
No.
I suggested Yvonne would probably go, but she can't because she's in Cotswolds.
I'm coming back from the Cotswolds.
So, does anybody want to go to Maidstone to the Invicta course on GDPR at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Really?
No, I can't. I've got meetings all day Monday.
It's fully booked.
Okay, so can you just
Well,
send
George would recover by then.
George's,
Well,
can you send out
George.
George's and say that if
Not my
they're
favourite
handing out
subject.
slides or anything, that they should
GDPR.
send.
It's my bottle.
What's your specialist?
And there's definitely apologies from me because I'm the one who's been agitating to go on it.
James.
Yeah.
James, as they call me, yes.
You're going along these.
Okay, on we go. Working party reports, caretakers. We've got a closed session item later because we had a caretaker working party just on a Saturday with George, Yvonne and me. Only time we could fit it in. There wasn't anything else to say though, was there?
No, well, I put on, sort of, the notes I put down is to see the agenda items 26B3 and 33 too, so
Okay,
we are dealing with it.
right. The monthly transaction statement.
Now that's where I've put them down on there. They're all sitting on my desk at home.
Oh no.
Yes. I mean, obviously I've got them here. So could I just ask you to have a quick...
Should we pass them round?
Yeah, so if you look, that's the caretaker one and that's the
Right.
ordinary one. I don't think there's anything else.
Looks fun to me.
Yeah, I think we've obviously we had a burial, so that was money in, and the money came in from KCC, which I reported last time, and we've had the money in for the half of the precept. So, are you ready for a swap? Really sorry about this.
Oh, they're really exciting.
I'll let you off.
I mean, I've gone to all the trouble of printing all that out as well. It's not as if I just forgot to do that.
It's nicely presented, so.
Yeah.
Oh, we have enough money to actually.
Good gracious.
Yeah,
There you go.
There you go.
You can see that.
for the funeral.
There we are. You late John Payne.
Cheaper,
Yeah.
half the price.
It all depends where you're coming from.
Well, it's just it would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So,
It's an old general fee then.
that's what that's for an ordinary burial plot. It's,
Is that ordinary? Is that historical? How historical is that amount? 1840s.
couple of years ago.
Well, a couple of years on then.
Got buried that one, Smith.
John Payne,
Hmm.
single death, which has sunk by that much. So I've reported it in Fuggles Room today to say that
Okay.
it's coming out soon.
Can
No
someone,
extra charge.
can someone propose these then?
Yes.
Yes.
Colin and
Who?
Paul, both of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've got the same problem with the next item.
Oh,
Really bad.
This is the caretaker's budget.
Yes, caretaker's borrow. So we've got end of year statement.
Right, well, I've got those two, but I can do
So you
two
can-
this
Thank you.
side. I've got mine.
That's the budget for
Oh,
last
you
year
they-
and
So you can.
Yes.
Oh, we've got
Oh,
two.
I think one's last year and one's this year.
Last
You want
year.
to look over their shoulder.
That's
Is it
18
coming?
months.
This is what's
Yes.
happened.
Can Colin have a
No,
look?
no,
as well?
I'll wait till I'm finished. You know, Paul wants to look at it because he gets worried about these things.
Yes, it's,
The bottom line on the caretaker is that it's pretty stable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're not scrabbling around.
No.
No.
there's a big drop in the tyre and bulb budget, isn't there?
Shocking.
We've had.
Ah, there you go. You see, that's a saving.
You see,
Clearly 4
I'll
wheels.
pass it.
you've even got a saving you can spend.
Yeah, so as far as the budget's concerned, you might have noticed that
He's joined forces with a guy that used to be at the Central Gatehouse.
Intentionally.
Yeah, joined forces. Sorry?
you will notice that.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay.
Start again.
That's because you had a new company.
So-
And a new vehicle.
Warehorn, what am I going to say about Warehorn's budget?
And in the van replacement, was it?
You will have
Well, that's
noticed
what
it's
they said.
doubled. That it's been
They said 650
Yeah.
now.
because they didn't give it to us last year, so we've got 2 lots coming
We
in this
spotted
year.
Well, that's very
Which is
nice.
sometime they're coming in.
Did Frank
all
do
that
it?
trade
Not
that's
that
going into
I haven't actually got it yet.
So
So
we
Paul,
presume
that
I
train's
spoke
going
to them
to
very
Wittersham
nicely and
Parish
asked them.
3,000.
How
Yeah,
much
so
did we
that's
get?
coming in. Otherwise, it's much about the same.
Yeah.
That would say 17,000.
It seems to be
It wasn't
working
the
well,
brand
doesn't
new.
it? So,
And the other bits, the increases, will be spoken about later.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy with them?
Yes, thank you.
So in a way, can you just hold off the budget because that will come up
Okay.
later. But if you
Right.
could, at the end of year, it
Okay.
should be.
Who's proposing that? Sue and
That's Leslie.
Leslie. Sue and Leslie.
Yes.
The women take a stand for once.
There's one. We'll keep that one
Yes.
ready for later. Right. We've done the caretaker's budget.
Do I hand that back or are we keeping it for...
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So yes, you are.
Working party reports planning. Considered since last meeting, you raised that before, the land south side of Palstry Court, we supported it.
Yep.
So we'll tick that as it went
Yep.
there.
Yes, just on that, you probably will or won't remember that I think land was sold or went up for sale, I think, at the turn of the year. And it was marketed at 55,000, and it said, and I remember reading it in one of the rags, potential for planning consent. Because if you look at it, there is there is a barn. I think it's where all those chicken houses were. That field's known as the tar tank historically. I don't know why it's called the tar tank, but that field has been called the tar tank. Divided into two, there were lots of chicken houses, which I guess it's been sold for perhaps somewhere near to the asking price. The new access is being put in, and it's a nice straight piece of road. How to put it, I'm being cynical possibly, but I suspect the new owner has taken note that it was being sold with potential for planning, sees he has a straight piece of road, is putting new access in with a view to coming back to us at a later time. That's not, I'm not supporting it, because I think a new access is just fine there, but I suspect that's what will be happening. So just acquainting you with...
Quite difficult to get from Ashford as I read it at the moment. I think I'm right in saying that their policy on converting used agricultural buildings to houses is that you should be converting the building and not knocking it down and building something else. So used chicken houses are not likely to be very good.
There's a barn.
There is a barn.
Yeah.
The chicken houses have been
Conversion
swept
is a
away,
different matter.
and there's a barn there,
Okay.
which I think was actually put up without planning permission some years back, and then got retrospective.
In that, if they can convert the barn, they're on a stronger footing when it's an
Yes.
agricultural building.
It's
I believe.
actually not
Yep.
much of a barn. Anyway, there we are. That's the.
Right,
Right,
well,
thank
we
you.
supported at the time, thanks Alan. We've received decisions from ABC on the smitings, which was the front porch, if you remember, and the pond acre we had. This went through very, very quickly. We had the people here last month or the one before said that they were very happy with it, and that's been granted very quickly. And Kingsgate House has been granted. Highways, anything to report?
They're doing work where it gets reported. I suspect that,
That
there's
big one in the middle opposite the shop.
Yeah,
Is that
just
the one you
been
want
It's been patched, yes,
today?
today.
Because somebody did collar me the other day and said,
Yeah.
when's the
But
parish council?
it's
gonna
getting
do it?"
lower and lower.
And I
Yeah.
said Lenny was out there with his shovel as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
Once
done
it's
today.
finished at the cemetery.
Right. Do we have anything on footpaths?
Can I just say something on highways
Sorry,
very
go on.
quickly? Yes, I mean, talking about through the centre of the village where all the parking takes place on the left-hand side, on that first stretch of road as you go through. Presumably, there's nothing that can be done about that because it is an
The
obstruction.
police like it because it slows the traffic
It
down.
slows the traffic. I thought that might be.
The trouble is, there's nowhere for them to put the cars otherwise.
No, I realise that.
There's another.
But there couldn't just be a designated gap every so often.
So what would be the alternative if you got rid of the cars and people would zip through the village at 40
No,
miles an hour?
I'm not asking that. No, I'm just saying that sometimes it can be quite a long stretch of cars. What I'm saying is,
It's not
couldn't
very
there be at
good because
least
of the
one?
bend as you're going eastwards, of course. As you come up, you
Yeah.
can't actually
Yeah.
see if anyone's coming until it's almost
That's
too late
right.
to
Before you
stop.
almost on top.
We all get used to that.
I know we do, but anyway.
Actually, on a related point, I noticed when I came into the village today,
Your
off
It
the
seems to be
road,
every
more
bit.
up
Just
to
down your front
Slighting's
garden.
end,
Was
there
your
are
road
about 4 or
close?
5 vehicles parked on the
Was
pavement.
your road close to
Just
that?
one.
Okay.
No.
There are about 4 or 5 vehicles parked on the pavement. The law is changing in this country. It will make it illegal to
Oh, yeah.
park on pavements. At the moment, it's only illegal in London.
Exactly right, yes.
And the fines are quite
They're
substantial.
talking about it anyway.
Yeah, it's
There is a lot
coming
of
in.
parking on the pavement here.
Yeah.
I get particularly irritated. I don't want to hold people up, but when I walk back to and from the shop, just between the Meadows and John Rivers' old house,
Yes, that's
they
it.
are
Yeah.
terrible at parking on the pavement there,
Yeah.
and I have to walk round
That's
in the
what I'm
road.
Mm.
They do it all
Slap
the
some
time.
notices on them.
Anyway, as Paul
And
says,
the cars.
I don't think it's been decided, but it's being contemplated to
Contemplated.
change the rules. It won't happen here, of course. That's the rule. Okay, open footpaths. Do we have anything?
Not really, no.
We've done it. Open spaces with our new open spaces.
Massive,
works.
massive and massive.
They're on the ball.
Nothing
Be
yet.
researched.
Cemetery and churchyard. Sue, anything?
No, nothing on the walls or the...
No.
No.
Okay. A
No.
report on your course.
Yes, my course was really very interesting. Found out the things that I'm not doing quite right, which I had a feeling exclusive right of burial is really not as it should be. So I've got to go through that. But there were only 7 of us. The chat was very good, and I was able to ask questions with that sort of number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
much easier to. There were people from large crematorium and cemeteries there. We had lunch in the cemetery cafe.
Here we go
It's a
again.
very big cemetery.
City of London.
They're
Yeah.
normally very nice.
Yeah.
Well,
It wasn't very nice.
well, it had been prepared a little while before we got
Oh,
there, I think. So.
right.
Oh.
But yes, it was. It was lots of useful information. It really was. So I can
Good.
now be able to.
That was the reason we
get to-
joined, of course, to see what we needed to know.
Mm.
Mm. Yes. So thank you for that. That's good.
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 Glad that worked well.
Mm.
And of course, it also means now, having been on the course, Yvonne is in better shape to ring up and ask particular questions, which you can always do, but it could really, or if you've been on the course, you'd know sort of thing. But at least we've paid our dues there. Good. Can we authorise the reimbursing Lexi for the
£7.
fertiliser?
£7.85.
Oh, not 20.
No, she said when I said how much, she said about £20, but I've actually got receipts for £25, for
£7.85. Can we agree that?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And reimburse the clerk for her travelling expenses
And
to
lunch.
London, £70.55.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Of course, the trouble was it was early, it wasn't cheap day.
£48 something going and 20 odd coming back.
We haven't got a report from George, of course, on the village hall.
Can I just raise something on the village hall for noting, and George, I have asked him on the previous 2 parish council meetings. I'm really keen that we start to think about putting Wi-Fi into this village hall. I mean, we're all sitting here with our iPad, can't get any connection. I was trying to get all the documents, and I think, you know, there seems to be an inertia there, and I think the feedback was that, well, you don't have any money. Maybe the parish council has to support some of that, but I think
Did that
We did it before.
I know, but it wasn't done in a particularly
Wasn't done
effective way.
properly.
It wasn't done properly, and I think if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's make sure it's fit for purpose. Anyone hiring the hall these days, it'd be reasonable to expect they could get internet access, and it's no longer expensive. And also, we've now got in the middle of the village, not well with it, but you know, high speed at 70, 77, 75 megabytes per second. So could we just defer that? So that we'll have a word with them or something. Yeah. Yeah.
We did get that last month, but I don't know where it moved to. Okay. Tenterden Forum. I went to the forum last week. This is where Mike Hill, the county councillor, gets his wards together. Let me just spin through this stuff. It was supposed to be in February when it was snowed, so we deferred. Mike's now got High Holden in his division. Don't know how it all happened, but anyway, High Holden is in there as well, and obviously it's Tenterden, it's all the villages around here. Broadband, he said, is slow progress. I say that because you're obviously concerned with that, although yours is probably a bit better than it was now.
It's gone on the blink the last 2 or 3 weeks. It was slowed down.
They've been digging or down the hole at Lloyd's Green in the last couple of days. And that, of course, is,
well, I think what I have to do is you phone up the help, and they say, "Have you plugged this?" And you can all that.
Yeah.
The only thing you can really get them to do is to then get into contact with OpenReach and get them to reset from source, and then hopefully speed up. So it's worth a call.
Okay.
Who are you with? Do you remember who provides it?
It's a blue job.
Okay.
Unaccompanied asylum seekers, he said, much reduced from last year. That was always a worry about money. In terms of the politics, the Conservatives, this is last year though, they've now got a good majority. UKIP lost all their seats, which they were all very happy with. They had 17 and they lost all of them. Over half of the council in the last election is new councillors, and also much more young ones. And he said the Labour group is all young and new, so he's very happy with that. Tough year in prospect, but then possibly easier with the new Adult Care Act. I didn't quite catch this, but there's 400 million and 200 million in extra costs and government cuts over the last 7 years. One of them is the extra costs and one of them is the government cuts. So they were 600 million worse off. I think that's cumulative. But anyway, the Adult Care Act, when it comes through, they reckon should be very helpful. They had problems with potholes because of the frost. They're spending double last year's. From April to August is when they do them. They've said proper patch repairs this time, where they cut a square out rather than just bang a bit in the hole and it comes straight out like a filling in a tooth that isn't done properly.
This is the same as he's told us.
Yeah.
That you're saying.
All right, okay, you've heard some of this.
Repeating it.
Money, £153,000 since 1st of April on potholes. In Ashford, Ashford spent more than any other district. 1,046 holes in Ashford have been repaired since April. 13,000
Some 3 times.
They spent 1.4 million in a month on potholes. Very proud of that.
It's clearly not nearly enough.
Well, that's true.
Beatles sing about.
They're anxious about cues from the impact on ports from Brexit, naturally enough, because obviously we catch Operation Stack. Buses, a lot of talk about buses. He was stressing there's no change to subsidies, but they are looking at alternatives to present arrangements in rural areas to see what will work best. There's a public consultation from May to July. Then there will be parish seminars in 4 venues. They'll be set up via Calc, and there'll be focus groups across the county. Then July to September they'll evaluate it. They're looking at a dial-a-ride approach. He did say, I thought this was rather surprising, there's only 3% of bus journeys get a subsidy. 97% of them are pure commercial, which means they don't have any power over what the bus company does.
No.
Biddenden Parish Council does a volunteer car service and has 12 drivers signed up, a bit like we've heard of some others. Passengers pay what they can afford, said the Biddenden man. Rolvenden, rather interestingly, and I did put our nose up for this, Rolvenden is going to run a trial for 18 months because their service was cut. Residents can't get to Tenterden at a reasonable time in the morning. ABC has provided a 17-seater minibus for volunteers to drive 2 times a week. There's a minimum charge, but it doesn't cover the bus passes. That's one of the problems.
Do you know what the bus is doing in the other days of the week?
Well, that's what he's now trying to build up, and that's why I stuck our nose up for having a potential interest.
Yeah.
It's due to start at the end of May. The parish council has to rent the minibus. I think they're about, I did look it up, I think they make a precept for about 7,000 a year more than us. Maybe they can apparently afford it.
Well, if they went the long way round.
Yeah. Route studies, they're doing route studies on, this is highways now, they're doing route studies on High Holden to Tenterden and Small Hythe to Tenterden. That's to do with putting in speed limits, which I'm not keen on, but Small Hythe is, of course. No, that in Small Hythe they want to have a 40 limit or a 50 limit all the way to Tenterden.
That's right.
Which Small Hythe were pressing for a while ago. Anyway, there's a route study taking place. We have to hope that they don't get it, of course, otherwise it just slows us down. I mean, the A28 is becoming impossible now with speed limits posted to it. Mike Hill said himself that he thinks that Small Hythe to Tenterden should get a speed limit, so he is behind it. Obviously, he may help push it through. There's consideration of changing the layout at Biddenden Triangle, if you know where that is. Where there's, if you go out the way you're allowed to, you can't see whether anyone's coming. We talked about Margaret over his hedge, Yvonne and I. Pedestrian crossing at St Michael's is being requested. We know how expensive they are. He agreed a SID, speed information device outside Rolvenden School, and he also mentioned the one here. And I stressed that he said he'd paid for it, and I said no, actually, we were paying a load of it, and Ashford a bit. KCC is working on a plan for Castleton Oak, you know, the junction up there. It's claimed to be dangerous. A bit surprised, I don't know why it would be. I mean, you have to watch.
It's frequent collisions there, it's unbelievable.
I've never seen that.
Oh yeah, they had...
When Tom lives in the toll house, he has someone in his front room.
Yes.
It's extraordinary.
I've just never seen that.
And they've got actual slow down a long way out.
You do have to watch.
And Castleton Oak's just been sold.
Has it?
Yeah.
There's a suggestion of a need for a speed limit on Cranbrook Road, you know, back again to that. You know, we won't get around the county soon. Someone said that the road repairs should take away the traffic signage.
Jeremy's obviously a bit of a speed thief, but isn't he?
Tenterden is increased. I'm careful, but sometimes you can do more than 40 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just
Most
annoying
of the drivers around here
drag
don't seem
along.
to realise that.
Yes, I was going to say. You know,
We don't need a speed limit. All we have to do is
send
get...
my folks up and down the road.
There's so many
slow
cars
everything down.
on the road that do not exceed 40.
Well, I don't exceed the speed limit, if I know which it is. Which is another thing
We
sometimes.
wonder now.
Until he gets not
Tenterden have got a sort of caretaker scheme like ours. They always had their own staff anyway, and they've enlarged it to do Ashford's work. They've gone up from 2 to 4 full-time people. It's in the 2nd year now. They don't like doing the cemetery. They're trying to get rid of the cemetery back to Ashford. I was kidding Phil about it afterwards. Why, you know, we've been a burial authority with our wonderful clerk here for years, and they're moaning about cutting the grass. I said, why don't you take the cemetery over? Oh, he said. Anyway, KCC is now using plastic curbstones, somebody complained. I've never seen them. Apparently outside the lemon tree.
Oh.
The crack is driven on by a lorry, said the person who was complaining.
Plastic.
Newenden has got planning to convert. They're converting their village hall into a house and then building a new village hall. I can't think we'd ever do that here.
We've been there.
Yes.
Go for at least a block of flats.
That was it. That was all we got. Anyway, it's a useful opportunity really, just for Mike to take stock and for us to hear what we've got to say. Okay, that was tentative for them.
Well done.
Right. So we've got to
29.
next meeting items for information. Ashford Plan 2030. We were talking about that before the meeting. I sent you an email where we are.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go along and hear what happens when we get to it. That's about all there.
Mm-hmm.
And I did call Glasgow today, but all I got was an answer message with Kenneth, something or other, about the rock for the airfield memorial.
Oh gosh.
I called him up today because he got an email from Yvonne after the meeting a couple of months ago when we said we'd go for it. We'd never heard another word. So I left him a message and asked him to call me, but I haven't heard yet. I'm not sure whether he was terribly excited until we said yes, and then he's decided he doesn't really care or what. But anyway.
Well, he hadn't been well earlier this year.
Oh, that's true as well, yes. So maybe he's
might be
unwell
that,
again.
Or
That's possible.
he might be unwell again.
Okay. What else have we got? Yes. Can we resolve by the nature of the sensitivity of the next item to exclude the public? And this is on pay. Can I have a proposer? Alan, seconder, Sue. Everyone happy?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go into closed session.